Quick announcement before we start this video. People have been asking me about the spooky season merch, so I've decided to bring it back for a limited run this spooky season. I'm going to set these as live right now, and it's first come, first serve, so you know where to find the merch link in the description. Get them fast because they are going to sell out. Nina Sayers was likely born in the 1980s as the first and only child of Erica Sayers. It's implied that Erica may have been a dancer herself at one point, but gave up and had a child when she didn't find success.
I just don't want you to make the same mistake I did. I just mean as far as my career was concerned. What career? The one I gave up to have you.
This may have been what pushed Nina to take an interest in ballet, and at the very least, her mother's new interest in painting may have influenced her to get involved in the fine arts. Her father is never mentioned. It would appear that he's no longer a part of their lives. Nina continues to live with her mom in New York City well into her adulthood. Around 2006, she joined a prestigious ballet company headed up by the respected director, Thomas Leroy. Nina learned to master her technique, but struggled to channel her emotions when she danced.
In 4 years, every time you dance, I see you obsessed, getting each and every move perfectly right, but I never see you lose yourself.
By 2010, Nina has worked her way up to being one of the top dancers in the company. And with the imminent retirement of their prima ballerina, Beth, Nina's obsession with perfection would lead her down a path of anger, madness, and self-destruction. To learn how Nina transformed into the deviant Black Swan, how her story reflects the story of the original ballet, disturbing real-world truths of the film, the strange similarities to another psycho-thriller icon, and a breakdown of all the subliminal images hidden in Black Swan, stick around to the end of this video. This video is sponsored by PDS Debt. Welcome to Horror History. This video was an idea I had while making my commentary video, Religious Horror Needs to Stop, where I talked about my fandom of the director Darren Aronofsky and about how horror movie lore needs to branch away from always being based on religious texts. Aronofsky's 2010 masterpiece, Black Swan, is a perfect example, turning the ideas of the 1875 ballet, Swan Lake, into a psychological horror frenzy. Starring Natalie Portman and Mila Kunis, the film showcases Portman's Nina Sayers being overcome by the pressure of the leading role in a modern production of Swan Lake, causing her to lose her grip on reality as she sees herself being transformed from the story's graceful, elegant white swan into the seductive, deceptress Black Swan. It isn't the first time Aronofsky has explored a character overcome with obsession. His directorial debut, Pi, is about a mathematician obsessed with creating an algorithm that can predict the stock market, at the expense of his mental and physical health. Requiem for a Dream features a woman whose obsession with weight loss leads to a diet pill addiction, spiral of hallucinations involving a scary refrigerator, and ultimately a trip to the psych ward. Perhaps the most thematically similar movie to Black Swan was The Wrestler, about a performative wrestler named Randy the Ram who is faded from the limelight but refuses to give up on his career and dream of achieving fame once more. This obsession binds him to a life of unpaid bills, injuries, a steroid addiction, and broken family life, all a result of his refusal to give up wrestling. In many ways, The Wrestler is the same story as Black Swan, but with many major aspects reversed. Randy is a washed-up entertainer trying to recapture glory, while Nina is a young talent coming in to fill the shoes of the washed-up star on her way out. Pro wrestling is often considered low-brow performance art, while ballet is considered highbrow. The Wrestler has a very grounded, naturalistic visual style, while Black Swan goes for stylized, surrealist dream worlds. Randy tries to repair his broken relationship with his daughter, while Nina tries to escape the suffocating relationship with her mother. But both of these stories would end with the exact same action. But in order to get there, we first got to take it back to the beginning of the winter ballet season. The production of Swan Lake is set to open on February 12, and according to professional ballet dancer Sharon Wenner, rehearsals for a major production like Swan Lake would take place over a 4 to 6 week period. So it's likely that Nina's story picks up in early 2010. She has a dream of herself dancing as the White Swan in the prologue scene, where her character, Princess Odette, is cursed by the evil sorcerer von Rothbart. I'll get more into how the story of Black Swan mirrors that of Swan Lake a little bit later, but for now, just know that when the princess is cursed by the evil Rothbart, she is turned into a white swan by day, only regaining her human form in the night. The only way to break the curse is a declaration of true love. But when she finally meets her love, he's tricked into declaring his love to Rothbart's daughter, Odile, also known as the Black Swan. Although the black and white swans are two different characters, they're typically danced by the same performer, which is a difficult role because they represent opposite personalities of one another. The white swan is graceful, pure, and vulnerable, while the black swan is wild, seductive, and disruptive. The white and black swans represent two sides of Nina, and over the next 6 weeks, she'll transform from one into the other. And that starts with the white swan. Nina wakes up from her dream in her childhood room, still living with her mother, who babies her, literally getting her dressed and preparing her breakfast. Her internal duality between the two swans is represented by a recurring symbol, mirrors. Mirrors are a common motif that I've talked about on this channel, from Candyman to Unbreakable to Us, but in Black Swan, it holds a special meaning, because Nina is a ballet dancer. If you've ever seen the inside of a dance studio, they all contain an entire wall of mirrors so that the dancers can examine their own technique. It's a tool that they use in order to try to achieve perfection. But for Nina, it's also a window into her darker half, as seen when she takes the train to the dance studio on the day of the audition. As is often the case in real life, the black and white swan will be portrayed by the same dancer. After making the first round of cuts, she witnesses an incident that no one was supposed to see. Nina Sayers may be a master of dance, but one thing you can't dance your way out of is debt. That's why today's video is sponsored by PDS Debt. PDS Debt has customized options for anyone struggling with credit cards, personal loans, collections, or medical bills. If you're making payments every month on your debt and your balances aren't going down, PDS has solutions for you. Everyone with $10,000 or more in eligible debt qualifies, and there's no minimum credit score required. Bad and fair credit accepted. And unlike the ballet, you don't have to have any experience to get good results, because PDS Debt strives to understand your specific scenario and can help provide alternative solutions to help you start slashing your debt down to zero. And when you're debt-free, you're gonna wanna do a dance to celebrate, because that's when you're really able to build your savings and start investing in yourself. Take it from me, being debt-free is the good life. So stop tapping your feet and start saving today. You can get a free debt analysis right now at pdsdebt.com/cz'sworld. It only takes 30 seconds. That's pdsdebt.com/cz'sworld. pdsdebt.com/cz'sworld. Beth, the prima ballerina who is retiring at the end of the season, doesn't make the first round of cuts for Swan Lake, resulting in a dressing room tantrum that Nina can't help but take notice of.
What?
Me whenever my video gets a 10th place ranking on my studio dashboard. Notice how Beth is wearing black and Nina sticks to pastel pink and light gray. The dark color versus light color motif would continue going forward, with light colors representing Nina's childlike innocence and dark colors being a symbol of experience, deviancy, and perversion. Nina knows she'll need a dose of Beth's experience in order to get the role, so she sneaks into her dressing room and steals her lipstick. Again, the stolen lipstick is in a black case as opposed to Nina's usual light pink case. But the swiped cosmetic only goes so far in the audition. Thomas tells her the role would be hers if he were only casting the white swan, but he's casting both. During her black swan dance, she stumbles when a newcomer named Lily walks in mid-dance. Lily, who wears all black and even has a black flower tattoo that resembles a pair of wings, would come to be a rival for Nina, someone who embodies the black swan as well as Nina embodies the white. Nina throws up from the anxiety, a sign of the incredible pressure to succeed and be perfect as an entertainer. While it would be easy to point to articles like this, or highlight some of the countless real cases of performers like Kurt Cobain or Whitney Houston who cracked under the pressure to be perfect, I think I can go ahead and speak for myself on this one. I've always wondered why there are artists who stop creating at the height of their fame and just disappear with no explanation. You would think after working so hard to get here, you would want to take advantage of the opportunity and make as much content as possible, or at least provide the fans an explanation for your absence, yet that usually doesn't happen. I love creating content and I have no plans to stop, but after getting this far and talking to many others who have experienced the same thing, I think the common misconception is that once you put out a hit, you're set for life. I like to explain the life of a creator like a treadmill that you can speed up whenever you want, but you can never slow down. The more you try to be perfect, the more the next thing has to be even more perfect. I have personally spent, I don't even know how much time this year redoing work that I paid someone else to do in order to make it perfect. Even though I have way more help than I did when I first started, 2024 has probably been the most stressful year, excluding 2020, because 2020. Because the expectation to succeed has never been higher. More than anything else, this perfectionism pressure is what Nina's story is about, and it would start to manifest itself in strange ways. On the way home, she has an odd pass-by encounter with a woman that looks like her but is not quite her. The woman is wearing black, reminding Nina about the dark side that she lacks to get the part. And when she gets home, she cries in her mom's arms, and the evening ends with Erica winding her music box and putting her to bed like a little girl. The next day, when she puts on Beth's stolen makeup in the dark train window, it represents her trying to find that dark side of herself. It comes through when she's timidly trying to convince Thomas that she can handle the Black Swan choreography, and he kisses her. The moment is a test for her. To this point, she's been the sexually repressed virgin thanks to her mother's infantilization. But in order to make it in the cutthroat world of ballet, she needs to grow up and become an assertive woman. And in Thomas' eyes, that maturation should come with other adult things, like harnessing her sexual energy. If you find yourself casting or directing some kind of production, probably don't do this. This is just a movie, and a very symbolic one at that. I don't want to see anyone catching a charge out there. But anyway, Nina proves that she's got some spunk in her by biting his lip and storming out. To her surprise, when the casting decisions are posted, she finds that she got the lead role, thanks in part to her little biting stunt. However ridiculous it might be that this changed his mind about her being able to dance the part. So at this point, the two characters pulling her in opposite directions have been established. Her mom is pulling her back to her juvenile roots, the white side, whereas Thomas is pulling her towards adulthood and the deviancy that comes with it, the black side. But her transition to Thomas' side would not be as smooth as her pirouettes. When she steps out of the bathroom, she sees the word whore written in the mirror, and tries to erase it for some reason. That's not your job, just leave it to the janitor. While this scene could be seen as a commentary about the toxic trope of having to sleep your way to the top in entertainment, I see the scene as more of an indicator of Nina's internal turmoil. Her goal is to be perfect as a dancer, and the circumstances by which she got the part are giving her imposter syndrome, the psychological self-doubt in one's abilities. It's no coincidence that the message appears on the mirror, the metaphorical window where she communicates with her darker half. As I discussed earlier, now that she has the part, the pressure to be perfect has only grown for her. All eyes are on her now, as exemplified when she gets home and one of her mom's paintings looks right at her. After showering, she notices this red mark on her back getting larger. This is part of her transformation into the Black Swan, and as the premiere gets closer and her sanity continues to slip, this would be one of the many symptoms of her metamorphosis. It's also something that her mom would become obsessed with covering up, almost as if she subconsciously realizes what this represents and wants to suppress it. Shortly after, we see how Nina became so repressed in the first place, when her mom brings her a cake to celebrate the new role, but when Nina is hesitant to take a big piece for dietary reasons, Erica rages out and threatens to throw the whole cake away. When you couple this with the information I mentioned earlier about Erica most likely not making it as a dancer herself, her motivations become more clear. She thinks she's protecting her daughter from making the mistakes that she once made by becoming obsessed with perfection, but she's doing so in a toxic and manipulative way, which is holding Nina back from truly growing up and blossoming. She makes Nina feel guilty, relent, and it ends with Nina doing something ridiculously childlike, licking the frosting off her mom's finger. As rehearsals continue on, it's clear that Nina isn't quite satisfying Thomas with her Black Swan performance, and he asks her to observe Lily's imprecise but effortless movements. She's literally becoming the Odile of this story. Later, at a fancy ball dedicated to honoring Beth's career and introducing Nina as a new star, the two would have an exchange.
Are you freaking out? Yeah. Oh, it's okay. I'd be losing my mind.
In hindsight, it's almost like Lily wants Nina to think that she's losing her mind so that she can get her role. It's just one of the many new pressures that comes with being the star of the show. But Thomas would not wait long to put her in a new, uncomfortable situation. At the end of the evening's festivities, Thomas continues to try to pull the dark alter ego out of Nina by inviting her to stop at his place for drinks, while standing by this creepy winged statue, which I'll come back to in a little bit. That's when Beth sneaks up and accuses her of doing something to get the role.
What did you do to make him change his mind? Did you suck his cock?
Not all of us have to.
At Thomas' apartment, which is decorated with Rorschach artwork and other clashes of black and white, he interrogates her about her sex life, giving her an assignment to go home and touch herself, to get in touch with her carnal side. The whole visit to the apartment is 91 seconds. I timed it. It just seems like this could have been a phone call.
Guess he wanted you all to himself.
The next morning, Nina tries to do her homework, but her mom is literally sitting there in her room, watching over her to make sure that her little girl isn't corrupted. Luckily, she was asleep. An interesting detail I noticed about this scene is the set design of her room. It's filled with stuffed animals and all light, pastel-colored objects and furniture, with one exception, this Black Swan plush on her chair, a sign that the Black Swan is alive inside of her, however small. At practice that day, rehearsals are interrupted when they learn that Beth was hit by a car, which Thomas sees as something she did on purpose, one of her dark impulses. Although he assures Nina that this has nothing to do with her, it does, because it's an example of a star's obsessive pursuit of perfection leading her to self-destruction. Beth represents what could happen to Nina in the future if she doesn't learn to deal with the pressure. Fittingly, when she visits Beth at the hospital, she first sees her in a dark reflection. Nina comes home to find her mom crying at her easel. Is this Erica sulking over her own unfulfilled unfulfilled ambitions, or is she breaking down seeing her daughter spreading her wings and no longer needing her guidance? Nina's internal battle between white and black would continue with Thomas' frustrations at her uptight performance, and Lily pushing her more towards that rebellious side when she literally appears in the dark and lights her up a cigarette.
You can't smoke in here. Well, I won't tell if you won't.
It should come as no surprise by now that we see this happen in the reflection of the mirror. But as Nina discovers more of the dark doppelganger that exists somewhere in her reflection, it takes a toll on her mental health and overall sanity. That night in the bath, she opens her eyes under the water and sees this. This is that dark version of herself that she saw in the tunnel a while ago when Nina was stressing about blowing the audition. It's almost as if this woman is a manifestation of Nina's self-doubt, that she'll appear in a hallucination whenever she's starting to crack. Nina's shoulder scratches have also developed into what I can best describe as goosebumps. It's no coincidence that her symptoms reference the skin of another bird. Even in other languages, the word for these bumps references some kind of poultry. In French, it translates to hen's flesh, in German, it's goose skin, and in Spanish, chicken skin. Things continue to get worse that week. She's punished at practice for being cowardly because Thomas found out from Lily that she was crying about the stress. This is another subtle tactic by Lily to delegitimize her in the eyes of the director.
Maybe you need a little break, like a day or two.
Thomas.
Or maybe a month. What do you think?
She shouldn't have said anything.
No, you shouldn't be whining in the first place.
I didn't.
Also, on the train, there's this old guy making kissing faces at her and licking his lips. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we call negative riz. Only reason I bring it up is because this is likely a hallucination. This actor, Stanley B. Herman, also played a character in Pi who appears in the subway and then disappears during one of the protagonist's bouts of psychosis. This Black Swan scene seems to be a mimic of that scene. The actor also plays a drug dealer named Uncle Hank in Requiem for a Dream. Back at the apartment, another argument arises about the marks on Nina's back, but it's interrupted when Lily shows up at the door, offering to take Nina out as an apology for getting her in trouble at practice earlier that day. Or so it seems. Going out doesn't seem like something Nina would do with the premiere so close, but I think she does it just to stick it to her overbearing mother. At dinner, the contrast between the live-free, laid-back Lily and the nervous, neurotic Nina is on full display. Lily orders a burger and fries, extra bloody, clearly not as concerned with what she's putting into her body as the girl sitting across from her, who hesitated to even have a slice of cake not too far back. Lily flirts with the waiter and fires off questions about Nina's relationship with Thomas, which she does her best to dodge. Eventually, she wears Nina down and convinces her to take a pill.
It'll relax you, it'll loosen you up. Let you see the night sky.
And change into a more revealing outfit that she happens to have with her so that the two can go dancing. Fittingly, she finds herself changing from her white top to Lily's black one, and they happen to be the same size, as you would expect from Odette's dark twin. Lily introduces her to a couple of dudes named Tom and Jerry.
Actually, it's Sandra.
Close enough, I guess, and they hit the dance floor. The club scene is filled with secrets that only appear for one frame. The first one is the creepy statue from the ball scene. Remember, we previously saw this thing when Thomas was trying to implore Nina to let loose and explore her dark side. And now, it appears in this scene where she's finally doing that. The next secret is this frame, where you can see von Rothbart standing behind Odette, a symbol of the dark corrupting the innocent. Then there's this face that appears in the bottom right corner. I believe this is Beth, the one who attacked Nina at the very idea of her using her sexuality at the beginning. There's another image of Beth shortly after, where it looks like she's trying to get in between Andrew and Nina dancing together, again playing into her jealousy of Nina's youth. This frame puts a literal spin on the idea of a dark, provocative energy overtaking her. But later, Andrew seems to disappear, and Nina has sprouted a pair of black swan wings. After this is where the subliminal images really start to get crazy. As the nightclub dance scene montage continues, and I continue to pause and go frame by frame for you, we see Nina dancing with Rothbart. And I don't know what's going on here, but it's a pretty disturbing looking image. There's also this shot of Rothbart's piercing stare in a black void on the left side of the frame, matching his harrowing stare from the prologue when he first transformed and put the curse on her during her dream. Next is this shot, where Nina is surrounded by these distorted, screaming faces. And after that, we see this kaleidoscope effect, almost like she's pulling herself away and splitting in two, White Swan and Black Swan. After that, there's a shot where the separation seems to be complete. On the left, we see her in her original white top giving side-eye to the other version of herself. And on the right, she's wearing black and dancing with this guy with her arms around him. But further down the montage, there are several frames of her getting close to Rothbart, followed by several frames of her kissing her date. Again, I think this represents Nina's innocence being corrupted by the dark magician. Later still, we see this shot of Andrew becoming covered in feathers with the background totally covered in eyeballs. I think this could be symbolic of the Swan Lake story, where Prince Siegfried is tricked into declaring his love to Odile in front of everyone. I think this has a greater significance in the story, so I will come back to it. The innocence versus promiscuous metaphor continues when we see the calm Nina contrasted with the screaming Nina. Then, this swan silhouette on top of a butterfly patterned background. We've seen this butterfly pattern before. It's the wallpaper of Nina's bedroom, which looks like it hasn't been changed since she was 8 years old, along with everything else in her room. The wallpaper is a symbol of her clinging to her childhood innocence, and the dark swan silhouette in the foreground creates a clash between the sweet little girl and the new woman she is becoming. And it looks like they might have thrown the statue back in there for good measure. After this, the subliminal images start to tease her transformation into the Black Swan more directly. We see this image of her face intercut to a similar shot where she's wearing the Black Swan makeup. And there's this frame of Nina seemingly coming face to face with the Black Swan version of herself. The last part of the montage is all about Nina and Lily putting the B in LGBT, or maybe the L, it's not entirely known. We see them getting up on each other, several shots where they might kiss, and them dancing in the same position we just saw Nina and Andrew in a moment ago. There are a number of ways you could interpret this, but if you'll allow me to jump ahead a little bit, there's this moment of confusion later on, where Nina doesn't seem to realize who Lily went home with after the club.
And then you just took off in the morning.
In the morning?
Yeah, you slept over.
No. Unless your name is Tom and you got a dick.
So I would interpret these images of Lily and Nina's dirty dancing as part of Nina's psychosis. Also, it's hard to tell for sure, but I'm pretty sure there are several shots of Nina dancing with another woman. Maybe the mysterious lookalike from the bathtub in the tunnel. One of these girl-on-girl quick flashes uses the butterfly background from Nina's room. Again, a foreshadowing of things to come, and there's one with a red moon superimposed in the frame, a foreshadowing of the Swan Lake premiere. Remember, in the story, Odette only regains her true form at night. And then there's hands everywhere. Nina ends up kissing Lily, or the lookalike woman, we can't really tell. But there are 3 pairs of hands on the back of her head here, almost pushing her into it. They may be indicative of all the people in her life trying to get her to let loose and get out of her shell. Thomas, Lily, and Andrew. Fittingly, this is accompanied in the next secret frame by an image of Nina in the full Black Swan costume and makeup, the result of her complete transformation. There's also another shot with more hands, but there's also a naked woman in it, so I'm not going to show it. When you're watching the movie, all of this is going by so fast that you can't properly see or comprehend any of it. But I do remember seeing the movie in theaters and thinking that there were weird images spliced into it and wanting to go back and investigate further. And now I have just done that for you, and you don't have to. The overall takeaway is that what's supposed to be a fun night out is filled with imagery of the one thing that Nina has been obsessing over, her role in the Swan Lake Ballet. Her obsession clouds over her wherever she goes. The whole kaleidoscope effect in some of these frames reminds me of this mirror in her apartment, which is the first thing we see when she gets home from the nightclub. And I'm sure I don't have to remind you anymore what mirrors represent in this story. When her mom confronts her after she gets back, she doesn't seem to notice Lily, as if Lily is just a figment of her imagination in this scene. That could mean that the following scene of her and Lily hooking up was also hallucinated. However, it's possible that she did go home with someone. During the ensuing scene, she briefly looks down and sees Miss Lookalike from the tunnel in the back, but notably, she has Lily's tattoo on her back. The only thing I can really say definitively here is that Nina's grip on reality at this point is very tenuous. It ends with the lookalike smothering her with a pillow.
Sweet girl.
As much as it would be easy to write this all off as a hallucination, the barrier that she put under her door to keep her mom out is moved the next morning, as if somebody had gotten up early and left the room. She also sleeps in, making her late to practice, and she arrives to find Lily dancing in her place, which fuels a paranoia that the reason that Lily drugged her was in order to try to steal her spot in the ballet, making her sick with stress. At home, she tries to relax with her music box, but her frustrations bubble over and she destroys it, then gathers up all of her stuffed animals and squeezes them down the trash chute. The discarding of all of her childhood possessions is her next step towards fully embracing the Black Swan. And maybe letting go of these items is what helps her finally have her breakthrough in the orchestra rehearsal on February 11th, 2010. Her only minor flub is her hesitancy to make the suicidal jump at the end. But now that she's impressed her director, the pressure to be perfect is as great as ever. It's like I mentioned before, whether it's music, YouTube, or ballet, the pressure to succeed only continues to get bigger once you have succeeded. We see the physical and mental toll that this pressure has on her during a fitting where the costumer determines that she's lost weight, and in the mirror, she hallucinates and sees one of her reflections scratching at her rash and taking on a life of its own. The meaning is obvious. She's losing it, and the devices she needed to embrace the perfect Black Swan character are the reason why. And this is very much real. For example, I have done nothing but write, not even going to the gym for the last 3 days as I tried to finish this very video. Part of that could be that I really like Black Swan and want this video to do the topic justice. But this isn't the first time this has happened. It's just like every now and then I have this compulsion to outdo myself. And maybe that's not a bad thing, but at a certain point it just gets unsustainable. Nina's compulsion is to be perfect, which means no one can get between her and the role. So after finding out that Thomas made Lily her alternate, she freaks out and begs with him, claiming that Lily is trying to sabotage her. I've seen some of the online discourse about this film claiming that it was all in Nina's head and that Lily was not actually trying to screw her over. However, I don't believe that to be the case. I'm picking up on a theme of succession. Nina has already taken the prima role from Beth, so it's reasonable for her to think that there's a target on her back now. Thomas tells her to just go home and rest, but instead she falls back into her old ways, staying at the studio after hours to practice. But this only seems to push her even further into insanity. While pushing herself past her limits the night before the premiere, Nina experiences more visions of her reflections not following her movements and a hallucination of Thomas having sex with the lookalike version of her, before transforming into Rothbard. Because every girl's fantasy is for her partner to transform into an evil sorcerer during intercourse. I think the scene represents the imposter syndrome still lingering inside of her. If she believes that she may have gotten the role because of her closed-door encounter with Thomas, it would be easy for any other girl to take it from her. That night, she brings Beth all of her belongings from the dressing room, having gained a new appreciation for the struggles that the older dancer went through when she was being replaced.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I know how it feels now. She's trying to replace me.
But instead of sympathy, she sees Beth repeatedly stab herself with a nail file. And at the end, Nina sees her lookalike's face staring back at her again. A sign that this too is probably a hallucination. The insanity would continue at home, with a vision of a bloody woman coming at her and her mom's painting room filled with evil-looking pictures of her, all chanting, "It's my turn." After seeing more transformation symptoms, her legs snap from under her and she's knocked unconscious on the bed frame. She wakes up with her mom tending to her and finds out that Erica called the theater to let them know that she wasn't feeling well. Obviously, missing her big debut is her worst nightmare, but her mom insists that the role is destroying her. Nina literally has to fight her way out, attacking her mom to obtain the doorknob and escape. When she gets to the theater, she confidently takes charge and tells Thomas that she's doing the role, even though Lily has already gotten ready. Her new attitude is exactly what he's always wanted to see from her.
The only person standing in your way is you. It's time to let her go. Lose yourself.
And that line would prove to be true in a tragic way shortly thereafter. While getting ready, she notices that her toes are stuck together, as if she's starting to have webbed feet like a bird. She's transforming into the role, and her old self is being left behind. So remember how I said that I think Lily really was trying to spoil Nina's performance so that she could get a shot at stealing the spotlight? Well, what happens next is a big part of why. The show begins, and Nina spots her rival across the stage flirting with David, the dancer who plays Prince Siegfried. In other words, her prince. During the lift in the next scene of the ballet, he drops Nina, and Thomas is furious, leaving Nina to try to plead her case.
It wasn't my fault. He dropped me.
Disaster!
In French, Thomas is saying, "It was a disaster. How can I trust you?" I don't know enough about ballet to really say whose fault this is, but I did find this article about how Natalie Portman lost 20 pounds to play the role of Nina Sayers, which would put her at just under 100 pounds. It couldn't have been that difficult for a trained athlete to hold her, even if she did make some kind of mistake. The article, by the way, is about Portman claiming that there is an extremely dangerous amount of pressure piled on people to have a perfect body in the social media age. If you're like me, you're probably sick of hearing some variation of this same headline over and over for the last 10 years. I think having some pressure to be in shape is a normal and healthy thing. And yeah, you should be cognizant that social media influencers are professionals and not usually a cross-section of the general population. I think both can be true at the same time, and we really don't need a billion articles, posts, and videos complaining about the dangers of Instagram filters. It's not 2013 anymore, we get it. But personal pet peeve aside, I still think it speaks volumes to the timelessness of Black Swan's lesson. Her character was torn down by the pressure to be perfect in the movie, and now, 14 years later, she's still preaching the same message in interviews. It's universal, and it can probably be applied to anything. In fact, if any of you have experienced the pitfalls of perfectionism, it would be cool to hear your story in the comments. But we're not done with Nina's story just yet. As expected, the rest of Act 1 and 2 are no problem for Nina as the White Swan, but during intermission, she finds Lily in her dressing room getting on the Black Swan makeup, taunting her and claiming that she's getting in a costume because she doesn't believe that Nina will be feeling up to continuing. In response, Nina smashes Lily into the mirror by shattering the window into her darker half and taking out her rival all in one action. Nothing is holding her back from becoming the Black Swan. Of course, Lily fights back, attempting to strangle her from her position in the pile of broken shards.
It's my turn! My turn!
It's the same line the animated paintings in her mother's studio chanted at her, which I see as a clue that this is not the real Lily. She too is an illusion. It's here that Nina's neck extends, her eyes go red, and she stabs Nina with one of the glass shards before screaming,
It's my turn!
After hiding the body in the bathroom, she recomposes herself and goes out on stage for her best Black Swan performance yet, dancing with a crazy energy that we've never seen before. The goosebumps that have manifested throughout the story totally take over her body, and she grows feathers which blossom out into spectacular Black Swan wings, drawing a thunderous applause from the audience. But if we look closely at the wide shot, we see the wings were only a lighting effect on the backdrop. She doesn't actually have the wings on her arms, meaning that this likely all happened in her mind. An interesting detail I noticed is that the red marks on her back are gone right here. Other characters have seen the marks, so they were real at one point. I think the simple explanation is that they probably just used concealer for the performance. After coming off stage, she kisses Thomas on the lips, a reversal of her character from the beginning of this ballet season. A far cry from this moment.
That was me seducing you when it needs to be the other way around.
But during this final intermission, Nina makes a fatal discovery when Lily, the real Lily, knocks on her door to congratulate her. This allows her to see past her hallucinations. There's no blood, and she actually just broke her own mirror, meaning that the shard of glass that she thought she used to kill Lily is actually buried inside of her. In a way, she's proven Thomas' earlier proclamation true.
The only person standing in your way is you. It's time to let her go. Lose yourself.
What she does next is one of the most powerful illustrations of the moral of this story. Despite the fact that she's bleeding out, she goes back on stage for the final act, because she has to complete her perfect performance. During the rehearsals, she was told to look at Rothbart, then the prince, and then out at the audience before jumping. When she looks out at the crowd, she sees her mom crying. It can be debated whether this was a hallucination or not, but her mom was the one who tried to protect her from the cutthroat ballet culture and protect her from the pitfalls that come with becoming the Black Swan. Nina may have won over her prince, Thomas, but she gave up her entire life to do it.
What did you do? What did you do?
I felt it.
What?
Perfect. It was perfect.
In Darren Aronofsky's previous film, The Wrestler, and there will be spoilers for The Wrestler until the end of this chapter, Randy the Ram's heart is failing, but against the wishes of his doctor and the few people who care about him, he goes out there for one last nostalgia match, claiming he belongs in the ring where he's respected. His opponent realizes something is wrong, but Randy refuses to stop the match, and with his heart literally giving out, he climbs on top of the ropes to perform one last jump, and the screen cuts to black. After Nina makes her final jump in Black Swan, the screen fades to white, the last of the inverse elements between these two films. While it's implied that Nina worked herself to death in the end, there was something else that I noticed in the film's end credits. After watching a film with a central theme of duality, it felt right that each character in the end crawl is given 2 credits, the character's name and the role he or she played. Many of these make reference to a role from the original Swan Lake ballet. Nina is the Swan Queen, Lily is the Black Swan, and Erica is the Queen. This inspired me to reevaluate the story of Black Swan as a fresh adaptation of Swan Lake rather than just a movie about a production of Swan Lake.
We open our season with Swan Lake. Done to death, I know, but not like this.
Just as mirrors are a window into Nina's twin ego, the story of Black Swan mirrors the story of Swan Lake. So let's explore Swan Lake a little deeper. Swan Lake is an 1875 ballet by the famous Russian composer Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky, who also did the whimsical and dynamic ballet The Nutcracker, and my personal favorite, the bombastic, dramatic 1812 overture. The music for Swan Lake is scattered throughout the score for Black Swan, so much so that the composer, Clint Mansell, was disqualified for Oscar contention because the score so heavily relied on the music written by Tchaikovsky.
Well, it's actually one of the easiest films I've scored because I didn't have to really write the music, you know?
Fair play. So Black Swan uses music from Swan Lake for its score, just as any stage adaptation of Swan Lake would. The score can also be heard diegetically as the ringtone on Nina's phone. Swan Lake is a story told in 4 acts. First, there's the prologue, which takes place at the titular lake. Princess Odette encounters the sinister Von Rothbart by the Swan Lake, tries to escape, and Von Rothbart casts a spell, transforming her into a swan. This is the first scene of Black Swan, which Nina sees in her dream. Act 1 takes place outside the palace. For Prince Siegfried's 21st birthday, his mother announces that it's time for him to marry, and a ball will be held for him to select a bride from the 5 princesses that his mother has approved of from other areas of Europe. In Black Swan, there's a similar audition happening, the audition to see who will be the lead dancer in the ballet, with the choreographer, Thomas Leroy, being the prince who has to make his selection. As we see in the movie, the parallel is furthered by the fact that Thomas is willing to be seduced into choosing one of these girls. Act 2 is set back at the lakeside. The prince goes for a walk to contemplate and sees one of the swans transform into the beautiful Princess Odette. She reveals that she's been placed under a spell where she is a swan during the day and reverts back to her human form only at night. The spell can only be broken if a man promises his love to her. But just as he declares his devotion to the princess, there's a major interruption. The evil Von Rothbart appears. The prince is going to kill Rothbart, but Odette shields him, because if Rothbart dies, she'll be trapped like this forever. Odette and Prince Siegfried dance, but then the sun comes up and she's changed back into a swan. He'll have to find her again another night to break the curse.
I dare you to find her if you can't. We gotta find the princess.
In Black Swan, Leroy is unsure about who his Swan Queen is going to be, but when he sees Nina dance the White Swan, he says,
I was only guessing the White Swan should be yours. But I'm not.
Maestro, Odile Scotta, please. Now show me your Black Swan, Nina.
But during her Black Swan performance, there's a major interruption, when Lily enters the room. But like in the ballet, they later reconvene. He kisses her and she bites him, which convinces him to save the part for her. In Act 3, Prince Siegfried is to announce his selection at the royal ball. Von Rothbart and his daughter, Odile, whom he's transformed to look just like Odette, arrive unexpectedly, and Siegfried believes that he has found Odette again. They dance together, and Siegfried announces his intention to marry her, and Von Rothbart tricks the young prince into swearing a formal oath. After doing so, he sees a vision of Odette crying, which makes him realize he effed up and swore an oath of love to her rival. In Black Swan, there is also an elegant ball where Thomas announces his selection, and when Nina is announced, her moment is marred by Lily.
Taking the role of our new Swan Queen, the exquisite Nina Sayers.
At first, Lily befriends Nina, but as the date of the premiere gets closer, she begins to see her as more and more of a rival. There is a parallel in the naming conventions too. Odette's rival is Odile. The names are almost identical. Likewise, Nina and Lily are 4-letter names with the same consonant in the first and third positions. Lily becomes her alternate and tries to make her miss the premiere by drugging her. I guess drugs are like the real world equivalent of a curse. Remember this shot from the nightclub montage that I said I'd come back to? I think it represents a scene from Swan Lake. All eyes on the prince as he swears his oath of love unknowingly to the lustful twin, the Black Swan. Finally, there's Act 4, back at the lakeside. The prince finds the real Odette and explains that he too was tricked by Rothbart, and that he really does love her. She forgives him, but tells him it doesn't matter. She'll now be stuck as a swan forever, and decides to end her life. In Black Swan, Lily manipulates Nina, causing her to doubt herself, miss practices, and ultimately show up late during the night of the premiere. At one point, Thomas is tricked into giving the Swan Queen role to her.
I've already asked Lily.
However, Nina goes ahead, asserts herself, and performs the role anyway. She ends up in the good graces of Thomas, but her jealousy of Lily ultimately ends up being what kills her, when she imagines herself stabbing Lily with the shard of the mirror, but really ends up impaling herself. Her swan dive into the lake at the end of the ballet really is her final act. But Nina doesn't see it as a depressing story.
So she kills herself.
So happy ending then.
It's beautiful, actually.
And she seems to feel the same way about her final moments. But just as the relationship between Odette and Siegfried in Swan Lake inspired the relationship between Nina and Thomas in Black Swan, that relationship seems to have inspired a relationship in real life. In the movie, Thomas was the choreographer, but the choreographer of Black Swan was named Benjamin Millepied. He and Natalie Portman met on the set of Black Swan and got engaged shortly after.
My beautiful love, Benjamin Millepied, who choreographed the film and has now given me my most important role.
Strange timing, but they actually got divorced in 2024 and went public with it literally as I was writing this video. But stranger still, this was not the only aspect of Black Swan that came true in Portman's real life in a strikingly uncanny way. Just as the pressure for Nina to be perfect in the movie mirrored Portman's own struggle to have the perfect body to perform the role, and her on-screen relationship foreshadowed the circumstances of her real-life marriage, there was one more aspect of the film that manifested in our real world: the duality of the Black Swan and the White Swan. Much like how Lily was hungry for Nina's spot, Natalie's ballerina stunt double, Sarah Lane, also tried to expose her for personal gain by telling news outlets that she did most of the dancing that Portman was given credit for. I think even outside of the entertainment industry, most people understand that stunt doubles exist. It's not actually the actors doing those things, but in this case, the studio was trying to get Natalie Portman an Oscar. In order for a movie to win an Oscar, there's a marketing campaign that the studio has to put on to remind the Academy members to vote for it. So in the beginning of the year here in LA, you'll literally see billboards for movies that came out up to 15 months ago, because most of the Academy voters live here in Hollywood. The ads are directed at that. In the awards season marketing for Black Swan, they really played up Portman's transformation into a dancer.
The Academy voters love it when an actor does something besides act in a movie.
So during this period, the veteran ballerina Lane was asked not to do any interviews until after the Oscars. Portman spent her entire acceptance speech thanking people, but did not mention her dance double.
I expected it, because, you know, at that point I knew what was going on.
So there was a lot of drama. The two sides went back and forth in the media after the Oscars, arguing about what percentage of the dancing was Natalie Portman and what percentage was Sarah Lane. Two alter egos of the same dancer battling it out, just like in the movie.
I didn't do the movie to get fame or recognition or anything.
But here I am on ABC News trying to get fame and recognition. Nah, but in all seriousness, I'm not saying I blame her for coming forward. I would probably want credit for my hard work too if I were in her position. In fact, I was, and I did, 4 years ago, when Screen Rant stole my Invisible Man video, tried to pass it off as their own work, refused to credit me, and got blasted in an exposed video to the tune of 2.8 million views. ABC News wisely went straight to the source, Black Swan's editor, who explained that Sarah Lane was the dancer in 23 of the 35 full body shots, but most of the closer shots were Natalie, which is most of the film. I think at the end of the day, the 2011 Oscars are over, and we can just say that both performers did a great job. And Natalie probably should have mentioned Sarah in her speech, but it looks like she was just going off memory and was swept up in the emotion.
And are you at all afraid you'll pay a price for speaking up?
You know, I don't care. You know, I really don't.
Lane was shot in the head by studio executives the very next day. But what if I told you that the heavy influences from Swan Lake, Aronofsky's previous feature The Wrestler, and even the black versus white color motif that we saw in his first movie Pi don't even compare to Black Swan's biggest inspiration? That honor goes to the 1997 psychological horror classic Perfect Blue. Perfect Blue tells the story of Mima Kirigoe, a pop idol who makes the difficult decision to retire from music and become an actress. However, Mima's talent agents disagree about this career transition. Mr. Tadakoro, her primary manager, sees the switch to acting as a good long-term career decision because pop idols in Japan tend to have brief periods of popularity before being replaced by newer, younger talent. But her assistant manager, Rumi Hidaka, a former idol herself, has an emotional attachment to singing and worries that Mima's womanhood will be exploited by the film and modeling industry.
Come on. Times have changed since Rumi Hidaka was a working pop idol.
I know that.
Mima finds herself in a tug of war between the two ideals, similar to the pulling match between Erica Sayers and Thomas Leroy. Erica and Rumi even share the trait of being former performance artists themselves. In another similarity to Nina's situation, Mima's actual mother tries to pressure her to remain a singer.
You just don't understand how this industry works, Mom.
Well, I do understand that singing is what you do best.
I'm sure by now you've also realized that Nina's name is just Mima with one letter shifted down. Mima's sanity starts to slip when she finds a fan blog written about her, and it contains personal details about her life, causing her to suspect that she has a stalker out there, pretending to be her online. Eventually, she slips into episodes of psychosis, having hallucinations of the pop idol version of her, just like how Nina Sayers hallucinated her lookalike that was more in tune with the Black Swan than the white. Whenever this happens, there's a mirror involved, or at least a reflection. In fact, at the beginning of everything, Mima stares at her reflection in the train window, just like Nina did when she saw Lily for the first time on the way to the audition. Mima's mirror image even makes reference to the two of them existing in light and shadow.
From now on, I'll be in the light and you'll be in the shadows.
Mima's likely case of schizophrenia is made worse by the stress of her new job. She's pushed outside of her comfort zone to act in a rape scene and a nude photo shoot that she goes along with for her career, but they cause her a great deal of emotional distress. Compare that to Nina, who is pushed by her director to explore her mature impulses, and this being directly tied to her ability to succeed in her career. Before Mima's photo shoot, she's mocked by her ex-bandmates.
So what? She doesn't care. I'm sure she can't wait to take it off.
Their attitude is the same as Beth and the other dancers, assuming that Nina got the leading role by doing sexual favors. As Mima's mental state declines, a series of murders takes place, and she begins to wonder if some dissociated identity of hers was the one responsible. All of this happens while she's working on a TV show, a detective drama called Double Bind, whose story seems to be about the same issues that she's actually going through. Double Bind also deals with the duality of one of the central characters.
You mean the murderer is just an illusion that she has simply created?
Yes. She fears an imaginary security guard and then superimposes that figure as a serial murderer of people that she has been affiliated with.
The layers of connection get kinda crazy here. Double Bind reflects the story of Perfect Blue in the same way that Swan Lake is a reflection of Black Swan. Double Bind features the duality of the pop idol Yoko Takakura and the actress model Mima Kitagoe, whose character name is also her real name. In Black Swan, it's Princess Odette and Princess Odile. Mima eventually becomes unable to distinguish the scenes that she's shooting in the television show from the scenes playing out in her real life. It's not exactly the same, but it reminds me a lot of Nina seeing elements of her ballet during the nightclub dancing montage. But there's a stronger connection in the way that each character interacts with her alter self, and the bloody ending of each girl's story. While Mima is worrying about the upcoming violation scene she has to film, she sees her reflection change into the pop idol version of her, and it tries to convince her not to go through with it. This is something that happens whenever she's dealing with an internal conflict, and it must be a direct inspiration for the scenes that I talked about earlier in Black Swan. There are other, more cosmetic inspirations as well. Mima is far from the only crazy character in Perfect Blue, and in one scene, her stalker hallucinates all of his Mima posters talking to him after receiving an email telling him that the actress Mima is an imposter and she needs to be killed. The sender of this email is feeding into the stalker's beliefs that Mima should have stayed a pop idol. The Black Swan equivalent is the scene where Nina sees her mother's paintings chanting "It's my turn" at her, which feeds into her suspicion that Lily is trying to sabotage her. There should be no doubt that Black Swan is as much of an American adaptation of Perfect Blue as it is a metatextual modern retelling of Swan Lake, especially after comparing the two endings. Obviously, there will be spoilers until the end of this chapter. In the end, Mima discovers that her manager, Rumi, is the one behind the killing. Rumi has dissociative identity disorder, causing her to believe that she is the pop idol Mima Kitagoe, and she's the one who's been dressing up as Mima to commit these crimes on her behalf. Mima only realizes this after seeing the true Rumi in the mirror. Rumi chases her until they reach a reflective shop window, and Rumi breaks the glass, but when Mima pulls off her wig, the illusion is broken for both of them, causing Rumi to collapse on this broken shard of glass, the same fate that befell Nina Sayers. The only difference is that Mima was able to save her in the end. I almost suspect that the character Beth in Black Swan, the former star that is aged out of her role, was put into the movie as a red herring for those who had already seen Perfect Blue, to make them suspect that she was behind everything. Despite all of those examples, which to me are clear homages to Perfect Blue, there is a lot of confusion online about whether or not Aronofsky was inspired by Perfect Blue, whether or not he had the rights to Perfect Blue, and whether or not he ripped off Perfect Blue's director, Satoshi Kon. This all goes back to the year 2000, when Aronofsky's sophomore film, Requiem for a Dream, came out, and it contained a shot-for-shot remake of the bathtub scene from Perfect Blue. In 2001, Kon posted on his blog about a meeting that he had with Aronofsky, where Darren called the scene an homage, but Kon still seemed to see it as more of a ripoff. In fact, it would seem that Khan was still salty about it 6 years later when he did a lecture series for the Blu-ray release of Perfect Blue, which was a huge missed opportunity not to call it Perfect Blu-ray.
被ってますよね。
被ってるっていうか、パクリなんじゃねえのみたいな。
During the 2001 meeting, they also discussed the possibility of a live-action adaptation of Perfect Blue. Aronofsky had tried to buy the rights, but according to Khan, a contract agreement was not reached. However, again, according to Khan, Aronofsky says that he still wants to do Perfect in live action. Well, I guess that day would sort of come when he decided to make Black Swan. Unfortunately, Satoshi Kon died in August 2010. Black Swan came out in December. Based on his reaction to Requiem's bathtub scene though, I'm sure he's probably rolling in his grave. It's clear to me that Black Swan borrows a ton of ideas from Perfect Blue, but it also transforms them by using it in its own story with its own characters. The problem is that people were obviously going to notice the similarities and ask Aronofsky about them, which is what happened in October 2010 at the Philadelphia Film Festival. Was Perfect Blue an inspiration for this film? Not really. There are similarities between the films, but it wasn't influenced by it. It really came out of Swan Lake, the ballet. We wanted to dramatize the ballet. That's why it's kind of up here and down there, because ballet is big and small in lots of ways. What? That makes no sense. I mean, come on, Mima and Nina? My guess is that some producer or lawyer or PR person who saw Satoshi Kon's remarks about the scene in Requiem being a ripoff instructed Aronofsky to deny Perfect Blue being an inspiration whatsoever if asked about it. Because they didn't have the rights, and it looks even worse that Aronofsky tried to get the rights and failed. And while any American court would probably look at Black Swan and determine that it uses ideas from Perfect Blue, but it's transformative, making it clearly its own thing, the concept of fair use doesn't exist in Japan where Perfect Blue is published. Who knows what might happen if a lawsuit were ever brought about, but I'm sure that the studio just wanted to avoid a situation where one of their movies gets blocked in the land of the rising sun. But in my opinion, Black Swan is a masterful blend of influences, making Nina Sayers a truly unique horror protagonist. If you thought that the real-life parallel between the Nina character and Natalie Portman's life were crazy, just wait until you hear about the real-life story that came out of The Orphan. You can hear all about it by clicking that video on the left. Remember to subscribe to CZsWorld for new horrors every week, ring the death bell for all notifications, and I will see you in the next one, assuming we both survive.